Welcome to all the panelists out here. After such an energetic morning with so much of shero shayari, I could not resist but write a share for ourselves. And as I begin the panel, which is quite an interesting panel leading us into future, which is talking about leveraging technology in our own functions, which is a finance functions. Let me begin, because most of us, as I see here, have an experience of minimum 20 to 30 years. And we have seen the transformation of the finance function from the olden times where you had manual books to the current era when we talk about a lot about automation. So मैं अर्ज करती हूँ, हर रोज हिसाबों और रिकॉन के साथ शाम ऐसे ही गुजर जाती थी. हर रोज हिसाबों के और रिकॉन के साथ शाम यूं ही गुजर जाती थी. ट्रायल बैलेंस और बैलेंस शीट टैली करते करते आंखें बिन पिए ही लाल और रात यूं ही ढल जाती थी. अब ईआरपी और टेक्नोलॉजी का हाथ जो थामा है हमने, डैशबोर्ड एंड एनालिटिक्स, विच आई कॉल दृश्य और दृष्टि, शाम तक ही आ जाती है और सुबह सुबह मैनेजमेंट के साथ बस फोरकास्ट और एक्चुअल की नीति भी बन जाती है. That is what is the change in lives of CFOs, where we used to sit and just reconcile numbers, try to struggle with numbers and make reports for the management. But today, most of us have progressed beyond that, to drive decisions day in and day out. And that comes primarily from technology. So welcome to the world of CFOs who drive by technology. Having said that, let me, you all see a QR code in the background. I would suggest everybody to please open your mobiles and scan the QR code to answer few questions on the survey, which will enable us lead into this forum. As the survey comes up, let us continue with the panel with introduction of our panelists. I would request the panelists to each give a brief introduction with reference to their background and experience.
I am Rajneesh Jain and I am CFO for Reliance Jio. And since you said brief introduction, I think that should be enough.
Hello friends, good morning. I am Selvaraj Mudaliar from Godrej. Godrej Boyce Manufacturing Company Limited. I am carrying nearly 33 years with Godrej.
Hi, my name is Sibaji Biswas. I am from Sony Pictures Network and 29 years of experience across telecom, pharma and now media.
Good morning everyone. My name is Satish Jindal. I am VP Finance at InMobi.
Good morning. I am Dharmender, Tuteja, working with Dalmia, Bharat.
Good morning everyone. I am Premchand, Devarakonda, CFO at Electronic Smart India Limited. We run retail stores similar to Chroma and Vijay Sales across AP, Telangana and NCR, and it's a publicly listed company.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. And as a survey, I think they're just doing the presentation of the survey. But let me get into the first question to the panel. And we will follow yesterday's format by having a lot more interactive section with the audience. So, as finance professionals, where do you see that the finance professional in 2030, how would the departments look like in your view with a combination of the professional finance and the technological finance?
5 years down the line, I think it's going to be a blend of analysts, technologists and strategists. In the next 5 years, these kind of changes are expected to happen. And the kind of automation that is going to come on our way will definitely take care of the mundane activities or the repetitive activities that will be taken care of by the automation. And for finance professionals, at least they should be knowing, increasing their skills in the AI and AI and cloud mounting. They should be increasing their skills, and maybe the professionals, finance professionals whom we would be employing in the next 5-10 years time. They would be more of a technology-driven guys, tech guys, and who would understand technology in a better manner. Currently, maybe there are engineers who are also CAs and CMS. Then for next 5-10 years, this is going to be the same, and they would definitely be technology-driven guys.
Yeah, so amazing. I think it's more about talking about technology or finance as you see.
Yes.
Summarize it. Yeah.
If I look at maybe 3-4 years from now, I see a finance professional becoming more like a business GPS. And if I think about can you work without tech or without some of the analytics tool, I don't think the kind of data at least that we manage, right? I don't think we will be successful without having blend of tech, analytics, and then strategy will come on top of it.
So maybe I would come on to the audience. As we spoke about how finance professionals will look with technology ahead, what would a digitally mature organization combined with the technology of professionals mean to you for future? Maybe anyone from the audience can pick up.
Basically, all the different thought process which comes, we call it more like an integrated business management, where all different functions will be fully digitally integrated, and it is not a finance, but basically, rather than talking functions, it is a digital integrated various processes and a platform creation. So it is a code which needs to be integrated, and this is how the overall things would mature over time. So when you talk about generative AI or deep neural network and data, where it's all going to be fully logical, and that is how your generative AI or agentic AI is going to mature.
Very briefly, one is related to, like you rightly mentioned, that we're talking about AI and agentic AI, which will do a lot of work for the finance function. And to complement to this, I guess going forward, the team composition will also change, and from a skill set point of view, I think we will have more of a techno-finance people who would be managing the show rather than the way currently only financial skill people or maybe some bit of technological courses which people are doing. It will now become much more mandatory where techno-financial people are in the function who will use the inputs for the purpose of business to drive it. And of course, as we discussed yesterday, because technology is such thing which will continue to change. So with a transformative mindset, people will continue to unlearn and relearn, that progress will continue.
I think thinking of it like what will happen 4-5 years later, I think is probably too much of forecasting, and I think we should probably live in the moment and really think what are we doing today to change what we have been doing in the past. So one of the things, for example, is we should question ourselves that what is the amount of digital skills in our teams that we have, especially in the business finance team, for example. We already have a 20% engineering team, which probably in a couple of few years back was not have been possible. So I think we have to be agile to the opportunity. I think just thinking that hey, technology is going to do everything. I think a combination of tech and human intelligence is obviously going to drive a lot of things. Just be agile. Don't think too much about what will happen in 5 years. In the moment, what can you do to deliver the outcomes which has been enabled by what has changed in the environment? That's something that we need to immediately do.
Right, analytical and decision oriented. So we know that today shared service centers are moving to all transactional. They will move out of organizations. We will also try to create a practical function which is more of very seasoned professionals who like to read laws, accounting standards, analyze and get the gist out of those to drive our ERPs and systems for future. Then there will be an analytical cell which is analyzing a lot more of past and future to give immediate and long-run trends for decision making. So there would not be any more requirement for functions like what we have today. So if you visualize ahead, there's an opportunity for all of us to drive the change in the finance function from designations like controllers, managers, because it gives quite a lot of negativity in the designation also. And we will see this shift happening in the future finance function too.
I think if I can summarize, what was being said, and this is one quote which I use quite often. For Tata's, Tata Steel, there's a quote which says that we also produce steel. I think in a couple of years from now, we all will have to use that tagline that we also do finance, because we are supposed to do many more things that we already have been doing. And what Mr. Nanda was saying, that in those days are gone, trial balance tally नहीं होता था, अभी trial balance tally होना वो बहुत पीछे चले गए. Even creating a financial statement is something which AI will do for you. In fact, it is already doing it for you. Not only that, comparatives, comparisons, all of that is being done. See, I just want to, if you give me some time, I just want to put this in perspective. And I go back to my journey of almost 10 to 12 years back when Jio was being started. And so what was the thing that as a finance CFO which came to my mind? The first thing is, data is oil, but data is also truth. How can you ensure that data will have sanctity at all points of time? So what was done is, while the platforms were being created, we stuck on to our ERP platform, and I think most of the finance fraternity would agree with me that ERP still is kind of a basic platform for all of us doing finance. But what I did different was, every other platform which was being created has to somehow hook on to my ERP platform. If they're using any data, or if they're generating any data which has got some kind of alignment with the ERP platform, you please hook on to that. Now that can be done at the initial stages, because later on if you have to do, you get into so much of reconciliation. That was one thing. So by doing that, you ensure that your data is correct. Then moving forward, now you have auditors. These auditors will still come and do reconciliation between two data and tell you that there's something which is wrong. So how do you ensure that? Now you get your auditors right in time and tell that whatever check and balances that you want to build, you build in the platform itself. Meaning thereby, you have actually taken care of all kind of exception reports right at the beginning. So later on, you just have to ensure that your data is presented well, and that is why your UI comes into picture, user interface. And I can give you one example that when something was done for people who are at Geo Center, we have 1,000 districts across the country which we call as Geo Center. So there is a guy who is a finance guy. He has to handle all the data and all the information. Now if you give him the kind of SAP T codes and you give him the GL code, he would not understand. So what do you do for that? You create a layer of platform which is a user interface. So we created Fury over it. And then you have dashboards, and dashboards you can create in Tableau or whatever. The last thing which is now being done through AI is the decision-making part of it. So once this particular portion is done, then you have been able to do an end-to-end cycle which a finance person is supposed to do.
Thanks, Rajneesh. I think it's very much valid. And if you look at the survey first question, I think this entire crowd of CFOs out here are at that stage. Because when we see what are the technologies which are being used by organizations today, we practically see that each of the organization is using right from big data analytics, cloud computing, robotic process, and all of the UI, UX and Furies are inbuilt into this. What we are not close on to are the last two, which is really talking about Bitcoin, block technology, and none of the above. So practically, this is a crowd which is privileged to drive technologies which belongs to big organizations or multinationals. But there are a lot of mid-sized organizations and smaller organizations who are far away from driving by technology. Having said that, can you just go to the next question, please? Having said that, what are the biggest challenges that you all see in driving your functions or the finance leaders to adopt technology with efficiency for future? Maybe each one can call out for one or two of the challenges and quick, and then we throw it on to the audience for getting their views.
Any adoption of technology, particularly in today's context, where there is so much of disruption that technology is potentially going to create, there are two things that play out, and I am witnessing it, and I'm sure many of you are. One is inertia, because there is a set way of doing things, very difficult to get out of it, patterns are set in the mind, not easy to get out and start doing something new. But I think what is playing out today in a bigger way is a fear. Fear of if AI comes, what will happen? I have been doing this, how do I really manage this? And in town halls, I get this question very frequently. What will happen when you are implementing AI? Because you're all doing that, right? And my answer to that has been, of course, we have to be absolutely empathetic to this situation, because employees, they have been our team members, they have been with us, and they are actually doing it every day for us. And I try and convert that anxiety into a creative energy. I say, AI is a dumb tool unless you train it. And who can train it better than you, who have the best contextual understanding? Only thing you have to get out of inertia and try and find out the best practices and keep on training the tool for over an extended period of time. Now, the truth is that some of them will be doing it very well, and they are the best resources that you have to continuously improve. And some will not. That's the fact of life. But try and convert the anxiety into a creative energy makes a lot of difference, and I have benefit.
In order to remove the anxiety or any kind of resistance from the finance professionals, the best is to explain them the connect of these AI tools or the technology to their personal and professional development, as well as the contribution to the organization's goals. The moment this overarching clarity is given, I think people will be able to easily relate and adapt to it. Second, of course, this has to be converted into support systems. That means whatever training has to be imparted, that has to be given, whatever support is required in terms of their training development budgets, etc. And more important is the anxiety has to be completely removed, because when people, let's say, beyond certain age, they feel it is becoming a challenge for them to understand, and they fear the loss of jobs. So once you remove that it is easy to experiment and also fail. That anxiety removal will adopt. That means it will be easy adoption from their side. And of course, the reward system also will be there. People who adopt to it, I think they'll see faster career progression in terms of growth and development. I think that will easily convert them to adopter rather than an naysayer.
Thank you very much. I come back to the panel, but maybe I should just throw open this question to the audience. Where do you see in your organization the challenges or limitations that the finance fraternity faces in adoption of technology? Maybe good to have some interactions with the audience.
One of the limitations, at the end of the day, it is artificial intelligence. So explainability or trust issues, as you call, because many a time we see data hallucinates, and what is going behind it, it's kind of a black box, which sometimes becomes difficult for CFOs or finance functions specifically.
The investments are not yet, it is not prudent to invest so much because of our siloed approach. The real benefit will be there when the data marries, the financial data is complemented by the non-financial data. But most of the organizations, we keep it in a siloed manner. The moment we marry both of them, then I think it will be really beneficial for all of us.
I think what he means is more than financial accounting, we have to move into management accounting, which overlaps data from non-financial resources to draw a conclusion that I would like.
This is one of the famous questions which is asked in every town hall, in terms of, what will AI do to your job? And my response is very clear that, I won't be able to say what AI will be do to your job, but I can tell you that, the biggest thing which I can say is that, it will obviously replace someone who knows how to use AI more effectively. So I think that is important. Having said that, as an organization, what you need to also do is that, and this is what has happened in DBS as well, we need to create a sandbox where people can test. And once you get good result, you need to ensure that you make those viral, so that people have a fear of missing out, FOMO as it is said. And that then becomes much more this thing, because when they start seeing that your neighbor or your colleague has started using that more effectively as an organization, you then up the standard.
I have a slightly different view, compared to what the other members talked over here. I think either we adopt AI on an immediate basis, or we will be left behind. And we talk about technology, we talked about ERPs and all. Every phase has to be looked at. You have to be there, and you have to work. Yeah, there will be times when you will not succeed in terms of integrating your system, processes and all. But it's an ongoing thing. Unless you actually implement it, and I actually come from an NBFC. Why are we really restricting the finance function only to accounting and processing of data, financials? I think as a CFO, the responsibility also is for the full ROA tree, which means looking at the credit, the asset quality is as important as the financials. That is ultimately the bottom line comes out of that. And as L&T Finance, we have actually taken initiative in creating a couple of tools which will keep us ahead in the race, because if you don't do that today, there will be others who will just go ahead of you. So it is very important that we continuously keep trying. Yeah, we may not be successful.
Are the first and early adopters of technology before they are left behind. But then there are many manufacturing organizations and service industry are yet to go on to an adoption of technology.
Learning is not everybody's cup of tea, and that is the reason why there are lots of resistances. What I suggest is when the technology adoption is being planned, and from the initial stage only, we should involve those people and we should encourage them to experiment. See, fear of failure will get built down if you allow them to do experimentations, and even if there are some failures, then that should be accepted. And that is how we can, train people to accept.
Sure.
Yeah. And I want to comment on that gentleman who said, many times technology overpromise and underdeliver. And I think we all have experienced that. So there is some truth over there. The only point I want to make over here is that with the huge changes that's happening in technology, many times we are at fault. When we need to reimagine our way of doing things, we try to retrofit our way of doing things into new technologies, and that never works. And that will never work. So it's something I think as finance teams also we have to make effort to kind of make things work, and that will be fantastic.
Sure, thank you. And one last question before the time takes off. Most of the CFOs nowadays are also responsible or owners of IT function. And they have a huge responsibility of driving technology, not only in the finance function, but across the organization. So this is a huge advantage to CFOs to not only look towards the CEO, but also to own the CTO function. And having said that, being owners of finalizing or driving the ROI concept into budgeting, how do you all see, as CFOs, would you all play an important role in making sure budget availability for technology transformation in organizations, and then particularly in finance function, which is usually a backstage function, not very visible. So how would you play a role out there? Maybe I can start with.
Sure. I think we heard since yesterday that CFOs have to transition to the CEO role by focusing on the strategic transformation, etc. So here also the perspective has to be there that which of the investments in IT will deliver the biggest value for the organization in terms of ROI, in terms of the early wins. So those will definitely get prioritized, and mostly the projects which are helping you to grow your volume, which are helping you to grow your sales prices or reducing your manufacturing cost, I think they'll definitely get the priority. So line functions normally get a first priority, but emphasis has to be there that which deliver the maximum value in the shortest period of time, because people may not have that patience to wait for 1.5 year, 2 years projects. Better to deliver in 3 months, 6 months. But when it comes to the finance function, of course, the focus has to be to ensure that we have a foundation of the data which is very robust, because from that data only the analytics will come or the business partner role will come. If the data integrity is doubtful, that has to be focused first. And of course, there are many repetitive functions, transaction processing jobs within finance function. which should get priority in terms of, let's say, the P2P automation, cash flow forecasting, etc. Those things have to be priority.
I think very interesting discussion. So first of all, I think as I said earlier, there has to be a platform-led organization. So every function has its own IT platforms. Those platforms have to be integrated. The entire data has to sit in a data lake so that if there are any abnormalities or correction in data, that can be carried out. And analytics should be built only over and above that. There are a lot of areas where there can be quick win, because I think this is one question which I am asked everywhere, that maybe organization with deep pocket can spend a lot of money on IT. What would happen to a smaller organization? I personally believe that this is an essential component or raw material, and there are quick wins available. You remove all the repetitive activities, you will immediately get quick win. You put this into decision making, typically in KBC scenario, if you are also able to go to your CFO and say, मैं आपको 4 ऑप्शन देता हूँ, आप 4 ऑप्शन में एक चूज करिए, he is in a better position to choose, and that is where your AI layer is going to help you in that. So in my opinion, it is an essential cost which should be agreed.
Yeah. So I think the last one before we go to 2 of the audience questions and sum it up.
One last point, not only for IT, when we have tight budget, I think this should be universal for everything. So we have to look at maybe zero-based budgeting or something like that, where we have to just see if we can repurpose some of the investment that we are already doing. And this must be true for everything. And maybe we should see if we can cut down somewhere to invest in area where we can get the benefit again.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so basically if you look at it, zero-based budgeting, the essential raw material as technology, or even for that matter ROI across the organization are very critical to look at when you look at investments for technology. Before we move on, to sum it up, any 2 questions from the auditors or any 2 opinions, observations from the audience, not auditors, I'm so used to auditors.
And technology consumes almost the 3rd largest OPEX item in our P&L. Any bank, if you see, it will about 8 to 10% of the overall OPEX will be technology. The way we look at it is in terms of what is required to run the bank and what is required to grow the bank. These are 2 aspects which we always see, and most of the organizations should look at it in that way. Due to multiple regulatory compliances which are required today to run any regulated organization, the money which is required to be spent to run the bank itself is pretty large. And on the top of it, if we really don't look into emerging technologies and things like that, then the bank function will really suffer. So it's a very fine balance between where you draw the line between run the bank, which is absolutely essential, and grow the bank. The other comment which I want to make by some gentlemen made in terms of over-promise and under-deliver, and that is a very pertinent which most of the people out here would have experienced, that it's very good and fancy to look into presentations and to say that, okay, our solution will do these kind of magics, but the core of all that is one single source of truth in any organization, which is very far and difficult to come by. And for that purpose, it is required that the entire data in the organization is put in a proper place, and data lake, data structures should be such that there are no reconciliation issues, and then on the top of it all that analytics can happen. But a significant amount of investment and thought should go in terms of developing this data lake kind of a thing, and then only all this, all the AI and all can work on the top of it.
Right, thank you. Job. The transition is going to be leveraging our people, educating our people to build controls to manage the trust deficit around data, and eventually as CFOs play our roles in convincing the management and CEO the importance of funding technology in organizations. Having said that, I thank the panelists out here and also the audience for an interactive sessions and views on the topic. Thank you very much.